Yeah, 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 yeah.
I want to tell you something. You can talk all about the theory you want to of the power of God and what God can do, but unless you have experience for yourself where you know that when you prayed, the devil obeyed your voice. The greatest keys to harvest is spiritual timing. I waited for 6 years after God spoke to me that a new anointing was coming. I waited for 6 years before I even began to scratch the surface to understand what God meant when he said a new anointing was coming. His divine healing power was coming to North America. Now, most people probably when they heard that from the Father would have canceled all their overseas meetings and would have just jumped back into crusades and meetings in the United States. I did not. I waited for 6 long years. And then the revelation came to me of this new anointing in the strangest of all places. There was one country in all of my travels, as I would go across the nations of the world, there was one country that I always prayed. I said, God, don't ever send me to this country. I used to fly into this nation as we would go around the world. And my plane would sometimes be stuck in this country for a day. I couldn't get a plane out. I'd be there 24 hours. And I was always spiritually sick. Now, I believe I understand a little bit of what demon power is. I'm not talking about some of the things that we call demon power here in North America. Some of your, like I told you the other night, your toothaches. I've walked into nations and walked into insane asylums where people behind bars who didn't even speak English language would call out my name, Cerullo! Didn't know a word of English, but when we walked down the corridor, the demons recognized who we were. The inevitable happened. The Spirit of God directed me to go. I can't tell you how many, but it was hundreds of invitations down through the years to go to this nation for meetings, and I'd put them on the side. I wouldn't want them. We went. And I will never forget, as I came off of the airplane. You say, Brother Cerullo, what nation was it? It was the nation of India. When I stepped off of the airplane and I looked into the face of my son, who was a big, strong, strapping man, he looked sick. His face was white and peaked. And I thought to myself, did he eat some food that he shouldn't have eaten? Or did he drink some water that he shouldn't have? How many of you know you go to these different nations of the world and all kinds of climate and food and water changes, and it affects the metabolism of the body. When we got to where the baggage was coming, I slipped my arm around David and I said, David, I said, are you sick? I said, did you eat something you shouldn't have eaten? Or did you drink something that you shouldn't have? I said, you look terrible. And he said to me, no, Dad. And I will never forget the look on his face. It's with me to this day. Tears welling up in his eyes because he is a very compassionate man. And he looked at me and he said to me as if to say, Dad, please help me. He said, I can't tell you what it is. He said, I'm not sick physically, but he said, Dad, there's something here in the air. I've been with you all over. But he said, there's something here. He said, I can't tell you what it is, but he says, I feel sick inside. I said to him, don't worry about it. I said, I know what it is. Take me to my room. They took me to my hotel. And I arrived the day before the meeting was to start. And I locked the door, and I went into prayer and fasting. I did not eat any food. And in that experience of praying in that room, I entered into a new dimension of prayer that I had never experienced before. It's always my custom, down through the years, my men will all tell you, that at a certain time in the day, before I step out on the platform, I don't see anybody, I don't talk to anybody, and I don't eat anything. I never walk into a meeting having eaten a meal or any kind of food, ever. And I spend most of that time, a segment of several hours before God, before I step out to minister the healing power. But this was different. I felt my spirit, because this not only went on for hours, but on throughout the night and all throughout the next day. No sleep, but travail. And I felt my body, my spirit, leave my physical body. Now, man lives in two worlds. He lives in a natural world and he lives in a spiritual world. And I felt my spirit leave my body as if it left it here in one place of the room, and my spirit was transported into an arena. And there my spirit, not my body, began to engage in a battle. I found myself calling out the names of things that were foreign to me, that I did not understand, but were actually the works of the enemy that were controlling the circumstances of that nation. For example, I did not know And my men are under strict orders not to tell me anything that may be coming against me. I didn't know it, but in India, the Hindu priests had already organized to kill me first night. And they had a plan that when my people said a certain thing, they had their priests scattered all over the crowd, that they were going to start to stir up the Hindus and riot them and bring them against the platform and kill us. You know what the little signal was? John, you'll enjoy this. As soon as the first person was to say anything like, tonight we're going to receive the offering, that was their signal. But you know what happened? I didn't know anything. Of course, and my people didn't know anything about the signal. But the Spirit of God came to me in that time of intercessory prayer as my spirit left my body and I began to deal with these things. The Spirit of God spoke to my heart and said, for this entire crusade, don't you dare let one person on that committee get up and take an offering. So you see, they didn't get a chance to give their signal. They were dumbfounded, confused. I felt like my body was wrung out in that day and a half. Felt like my whole spirit was wrung out. I found myself praying not against the things, but I found myself in the spirit world coming against powers that were influencing and causing these things to come into being. I didn't pray against the Hindu priests because they were nothing. Who are the Hindu priests? Nothing. It was the forces that surrounded the Hindu priests. They were not in control of themselves. Something else was in control of them that caused them to act like they were acting and wanting to come against me and kill me. It wasn't them. It was something else. There was a man that God raised up many years ago. God used him mightily in North America, especially on the East Coast. His name was Charles Finney. Finney was a Congregationalist. He wasn't a Pentecostal that we could look at and say, oh, well, he belonged in the Pentecostal ranks. He was a Congregationalist. He was an attorney, very well known, was won to Christ, miraculous conversion. It's no trick to teach. A lot of people can teach. But you know why we're not turning out very many people that can cast out devils. You know why we're not turning out very many people that can heal the sick? You know why? Because our people are not under the teachers who have had the experience, whoever did it themselves. And brother, I want to tell you something. You can talk all about the theory you want to of the power of God and what God can do, but unless you have experience for yourself where you know